Hi guys, it's Jake from Canadian Cutting Edge, and I know I've got the same shirt on. I'm recording a few intros on the same day. Today we're taking a look at a folding knife by Enlan. This is the EW081, and it's got a G10 handle. It's got 8CR13 MOV steel, drop point blade. It's got, I'm going to call this a full flat grind because it's got about an inch of a flat grind right there. It's not a saber grind, so it's high enough that I'm calling it a full flat. A blade that's an inch high, if they just ground it off at the top, you'd call it a full flat, right? It's deep enough. There's just no good name sometimes for some knives because it's definitely not a saber grind at all. Very good knife. Well, and almost a half of the cutting edge is full flat because it goes right up to here, and you've only got a top flat area here over the last half of the knife. So that's good if you've got a sharpening system that clamps on to sharpen. But it's a very interesting knife. In this kind of orientation, the handle looks like a canoe or a long, skinny Texas watermelon. Very interesting feeling knife. It's got no pocket clip. If you're interested in this knife, and it looks pretty cool to me, why don't you stick around? We're going to do a full review of this stabby blade. So this knife by Enlan is a knife that I've had for a while, but since I wanted to start doing my reviews with the cut tests in the original condition, what I've done is I've tuned up this blade a little bit so it's very much like it was when I first got it. It's not exactly like it was because I did buy this quite a while ago. I do remember it being a bit better than that, but I have used it for quite a while and I have not actually sharpened it. I've only done a little bit of stropping to try to get it close to, what it was like when it came from the factory, and I think it's doing quite well. Let's cut some other materials. Here's some of that 1-inch wide banding. It just zips through that, no problem. I don't have a cutting board handy, so I'll use the back of my pocket system here. And you can see that using the tip, it cuts pretty well too. Here's some paracord. Just zips through that easily too. It's a good blade for what you get. It's all belly all the way along, but nice slowly sloping belly. Really good edge, easy to maintain, 8CR13 MOV steel, Rockwell hardness of around 58, and it's a great little cutting edge here. Let's talk about the specs of the size of this thing. We've got a cutting edge right there of 8.3 centimeters, which is 3.3 inches. The blade thickness is a nice generous 3.5 millimeters, which is 0.14 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind's just over 0.5 millimeter. That's 0.51 millimeters, equal to 0.02 inches. Very common dimensions for an EDC knife. 0.5 millimeter is very good for good regular EDC kind of uses. From the cutting edge to the spine this way, at the biggest spot here is 3.1 centimeters, which is 1.25 inches. Let's talk about the handle here. The handle here is 12.5 centimeters, which is 4.9 inches. The handle thickness is 1.8 centimeters, which is 0.7 of an inch. The grip area is 8.2 centimeters, which is 3.25 inches. And the full open length of this knife is 21.2 centimeters, which is 8.3 inches. It's a heavy little knife because they didn't do any skeletonizing at all on the liners. 161 grams, 5.7 ounces. If they would have skeletonized this liner here, because we've got a lot of steel back here, this guy could have been under 5 ounces, and I really wish, well, maybe not under, it'd be close to 5 ounces, and I really wish it would have been done that way. We've got open pillar construction, really nice hourglass pillars. I think I can get a close-up shot with this camera. There's a good close-up shot. You can see how those hourglass pillars are shaped, and you can see the lanyard hole right there. Adequate for 550 paracord easily. We've got 3 pillars back here, and then we've got a stop pin that is screwed in from both sides, and then you've got the pivot. It's all Torx construction, so it's easy to take apart and do your adjustments, do your maintenance or whatever. It's a liner lock knife. As you can see right there, the lockup is very much like what I like to see on a brand new knife. Maybe it's slightly further than I like a brand new knife to be. I prefer a brand new knife to be just right there is where I prefer a brand new knife to be, and this one is, you know, just that tiny bit further most of the time. No big deal at all. Lots of room for wear on this knife. Great lockup. No play, big up and down, back and forth, and it's a rock solid play, rock solid lockup. The jimping that we've got on here, you can see the close-up of the jimping on the thumb riser there. This camera's working out pretty good that I'm not needing some of those still pictures from my USB microscope anymore. But there you go. Very nice, and you can see the thumb studs there. Very easy. Great for you know, opening the knife. And with those thumb studs there, it's really easy to deploy that blade. And I've got a cut right there, and it doesn't even hurt to open this blade that way, although the cut does hurt a little bit, I should say. It's pretty good with the right or left hand. I've got a sore left thumb actually from my arthritis, so I'm having a tough time deploying the blade because of that. But it slides really good. The washers that we have in this pivot, we've got 1 nylon washer and 1 phosphor bronze washer. And since it's not skeletonized at all, I'm not going to take the knife apart and show you the insides. You know what a flat piece of steel looks like in the shape of a canoe. That's what you got back there. I really wish they would skeletonize this thing. I might do that myself if I keep this knife for a while. So what are the good things and bad things about this knife? Well, some of you guys are going to be upset that there's no pocket clip. And there is no pocket clip. I put this thing either in a belt sheath, a pouch, or I just do a pocket drop on it. So this is the pouch that I use, and it's just on my belt, and you open it up and you just pull the knife out, and when you're done you push it back in, close it up, and it's so easy to grab because I got that tiny piece of lanyard sticking out. I understand that some of you guys just don't like using these belt pouches. Well, you can just drop it in your pocket and use it that way. It's another option. Where I live, it's not uncommon to have a little pouch like this on your belt. Have your multi-tool or whatever you have in there, and it works for me. So the pocket clip is one concern for some people. The lanyard hole I wish was further to the end. It's not a big deal where it is, but it's okay because some people are going to use a lanyard and drape your lanyard outside of your pocket and pull it out that way instead of using a pouch on your belt. What are some of the positives? It's got a good detent, so when you close the knife, you can hear it closing up on that last little bit. Very good. And it holds it very well for when you go to flip it out. So deployment is just great. Another great thing is I don't think they're actually calling that a sneak up choil, but it's very comfortable to hold the knife like this. So put that index finger just behind there and then hold it. And this is actually a very comfortable way to hold the knife. One of the most comfortable. The back end of my thumb is sitting on that jimping right there, and I can do an awful lot of good work with it, good detailed work. I like how stabby this blade is. It's a very strong tip. That's another good thing. The sharpener's choil, basically the sneak up choil ends up as being a sharpener's choil, so that's good for when you go to sharpen the knife. I really like the lockup. It's really good. It's a good slicer. What don't I like? I don't like that pocket clip missing. I don't like this grip, and I don't like the skeletonizing that's lacking. Let's talk about this grip because it's a deal breaker for some people. And it would be for me if I didn't have sandpaper. This edge here on both sides, the G10 is sharp. All the way from the very tip of the handle here to the very tip of the handle here. If you grab it tight and you're doing work and you're actually doing a fair bit of cutting for a while, that gets very hot all the way along. It puts lines all the way across my fingers there. And it gets very irritating very quickly. On the spine here, they sanded the G10 right rounded right onto the liners, and it's very comfortable, very nice, but they didn't do it here. But it's such an easy thing to fix. Very, very easy to fix. You just go outside, because G10, when you sand it, you don't want that in your lungs. Just trust me, you don't want that in your lungs. If you can't go outside to sand it, do wear a face mask. And just do some really light sanding using some very fine sandpaper. I'd say 800 grit or finer, 600 grit maybe. And just sand off these edges and make it round. Just a little bit rounding it off, and it's going to be comfortable. My hands are a large size, just on the border of extra large in North American sizes. That's right between 9 and 10 for European sizes, and my hand fits in here just barely. If you've got larger hands, if your hands are extra large in North America, you will not want this knife unless you're always going to hold it this way. Your hand will not fit in there. It just won't. So, like I said, I'm on that border between large and extra large in North American sizes. So if you've got large size hands, you're probably going to use this just fine. If you're large, bordering on extra large, and I know I'm reiterating that lots of times because, if you really love this knife in every other way, but your hands are too big, you're just going to end up hating this thing. So there you go. There's that knife. I like it. It's fun. It's cool. It's different. It's got some negatives, but it doesn't cost that much. $14.64 US. It ships starting May 9th because they're getting a brand new shipment in. So if you can buy it today, and in a couple of days it'll be shipped. If you want to buy this from GearBest, please use the links that I have in the description below, because I'll get a small commission and that'll help out the channel an awful lot. I purchased this knife for my own money. That's just so that I'm just doing the disclaimers so you know exactly what the context is of this review. And I'm glad I bought it. The negatives that it has are negatives that I can overcome and deal with, so I don't mind it. I think it's a cool knife. It reminds me of summertime every time I look at it. This just reminds me of a great big long Texas watermelon. Almost said pumpkin. When I was growing up in southwestern Ontario, we would get watermelons from South Texas, and, well, I don't know what part of Texas actually, southern Ontario, and we got Texas watermelons in sometimes. These long, narrow, not too narrow, but these long watermelons, and they were just so great. And so I think of summer and sweetness when I see this knife. I like it quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. That really means an awful lot to me. Tell your friends about the channel. Let them know about this and what I'm doing here. Thank you for clicking that bell so that you'll be notified of every video and YouTube won't unsubscribe you. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate that a lot. And remember, always cut towards your chum and not your thumb.